This chapter covers online and social media tactics that we can use in public relations. So let's talk about using online and social media. It has really changed the practice of public relations. You must communicate through multiple channels, so you can't just use news media, for example. You have to think about how to build digital and social media into your campaign as well. So let me talk about PESO, and that is a helpful strategy for integrated public relations and advertising campaigns. The PESO stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned. And so paid media would be your paid ads or your paid or sponsored social media posts. Your earned media is when you pitch the media, your stories, and they pick up your stories. And so you've earned that media through media coverage through your hard work. Shared media is social media, for example, where you're sharing things and then you are hoping that consumers and other publics are sharing content as well. And then finally, owned media. And owned media are the media platforms that you control completely, such as your own website or your own blog. There are a number of advantages and disadvantages to using digital media. The one really nice thing is that you can distribute your own content online and you don't have to go through the media. So we don't have to be talking to journalists and pitching journalists. So we can just push the content out there to various publics on our own. We can interact with different publics using social media and digital media. We can gain a following, and then we can possibly influence public opinion on a matter. As you know, we are all consuming a lot of digital content. Now, one of the problems that your book mentions is there is a problem with the proliferation of fake news and other disinformation campaigns that are happening on digital media, on social media as well. We can think about websites as distribution systems for content. So think about all the text, audio, videos, graphics, and photo content that is available online. Now, search engines have been around for a long time. They do help us find information, and browsers pull information into a dashboard for us to take a look at. I have been around for a long time, studying social media actually for over 20 years. And I do remember the early days of the web in, say, the mid-90s, where you would have to know a website and then type that in to go to that website. There wasn't, the search engines weren't around until I think Google launched maybe in 1999. And so we had a couple others before Google, but we didn't have a way to search things on the web. It wasn't indexed in that way. You just had to know exactly the website to go to. So I know that sounds crazy today, but the search engines do really help us find the content that we're looking for. We also have high-speed wireless internet access, and that's really improved our online experience. And then people who carrying around smartphones and tablets like iPads can make the web even more accessible. As you're probably aware, the web offers low barrier to entry, which means that anybody can post content on the web. Anybody can set up a blog or social media platforms or social media profiles where they push content out. It's very popular. It has great support for multimedia content, and then it connects us to consumers. Obviously, most companies do have websites, although like every once in a while, I'm looking for a small business and I can't find their website. But many of them also include an online newsroom, which we'll talk about in a minute. Social media links that they have on their websites can be helpful to driving content or driving people to social profiles. And then when they have like that share this button on their website, that's also helpful to further spread their content. So social media are diverse and powerful. So you know what social media, I believe you know what social media are. They are sites like Facebook and Instagram, but social media also includes blogs, video sites, online communities like Reddit, review sites, wikis, etc. Most companies do use multiple social media platforms because they serve different publics, and we will break those down here in a minute. And as you probably know, the social media platforms do have different features and styles. Social media platforms offer social sharing, links back to the organization's website so we can send people to the website, the ability to connect or communicate directly and instantly with different publics, and the ability to engage and build relationships with publics. And organizations and PR firms often have social media managers to manage the social media sites for the client or the organization. Mobile phones and tablets, as I mentioned before, they also increase the reach. It just gives us many more opportunities for public relations. And so you would want to consider content that appeals to mobile users and works on a small screen. I will talk about that some more in a minute. Being connected with people improves communication. And just to compare and contrast, or more like contrast, online and social media with traditional mass media. Online and social media are user-centric, where we are pulling information. So we're like actively online often, although sometimes we're just scrolling on a social media site. We're actively pulling information, and we can have two-way communication with a brand. Mass media tend to push information out, and it's one-way communication. So although a newspaper and television station do have digital platforms, for the most part, when we think about a newspaper, it's a one-way method of communication, and the information is pushed out to us. It's, the newspaper decides what they think we should read instead of us as active consumers looking for stories. When you engage with different publics as a PR practitioner, the information is more likely to be understood, remembered, and acted upon. And so that's why social and digital media are so powerful, is that we can have a conversation with a representative at a company, and that can build our brand loyalty, for example. And finally, the information provided by public. So, all the content that we are putting out there on social media and on the web about how much we love this brand or our experiences with this brand can help public relations practitioners understand the wants and needs of different publics. We can, as a PR practitioner, monitor public opinion and evaluate the success of our PR efforts. Let's talk about some evolving technologies. I'm going to talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, and then also artificial intelligence on the next slide. So virtual reality, or VR, is where you see immersive 3D videos or images in like a 360-degree view. You can do this by putting on a headset, and if you've ever worn one of these VR headsets, you're in a completely different world. You are looking around, you can turn around, you can walk a certain way, and your environment changes as you move. You can also sort of simulate this on a website. It's a little bit more like 2D, trying to be 3D, but you can have sort of a virtual reality website. There were some examples in your book that were interesting. This is great for storytelling. So for example, USA Today uses this in telling different stories, experiencing artwork. So they had an exhibit, a Claude Monet interactive virtual reality exhibit that you could experience where you're like walking through the art. And even with brands like, for example, Lowe's, that maybe wants to show you what it feels like if you remodeled your bathroom or your kitchen, this is how you could experience that space. Now, augmented reality is really kind of combining like real world and a virtual world. So as it says here, it's a real world environment that's enhanced by computer generated visual elements, sounds, and other stimuli. So if you think about face filters that you see on TikTok or Snapchat or whatever, that's an augmented reality, because you can still see you there, but it changes you in some way. Or Google Maps Live View, where it overlays the virtual part on the actual map. So a couple of more examples from your book. One is that in the streets of London, you can initiate AR from a QR code that you maybe see on the street, and then it gives you, maybe tells you about your surroundings. I've seen this before in a lot of cities for tourism purposes. And then there was I think this was at a museum in Scotland, something called the Arctic Trail, and then you could just hold your phone in front of these stuffed polar bears, and it would make them come alive. A couple examples I pulled is Red Bull does such a good job. You can actually go and experience this Red Bull, the Edge, in Switzerland. So if you want to go to Switzerland and see this Red Bull, the Edge, and it's like you're mountain climbing. So you go in a virtual reality mountain climbing exhibition. And then also they did some things with like surfing, so you can see the people down below in this environment where they feel like and feel like, and they're in the environment like they're surfing. So Red Bull is an amazing company that does so many cool things. So if you are interested in this, I would definitely check out what they are doing. Here's an example from Coca-Cola where they use augmented reality to tell a story. And what you do is you point your phone's camera at the can of Coke, and then you would see one of these 12 little stories with these characters that have a minor conflict, and then they interact in a humorous way to resolve their disagreements by sharing a Coke. Okay, I thought that was really cute, and I hope you did too. Really creative too. So the third evolving technology that your book discusses is artificial intelligence, which you've probably heard a lot about already in the context of ChatGPT and some other applications like that. So how can we use this in public relations? Well, actually, your book didn't say this specifically, but any content that you want to write, you could at least start it in ChatGPT. Of course, you'd have to make sure that your employer was okay with that. But if you needed to write a news release, I would just, type the prompt into ChatGPT and see what it comes up with. But some of the examples that they give in your book are that it can take data and convert it into text for you and then produce a news release for you. And so if you have something like quarterly earnings, and so you can just take the quarterly earnings data and it would translate it directly into a news release. It might be able to, or it can also translate language, like maybe you make a speech or something like that, and then it can also translate that speech into text for a news release or a blog post. So if your CEO makes a speech somewhere, the ChatGPT could write a news release about that speech. It can interpret the meaning of text that's, say, something posted online that by consumers, or monitor media coverage for you. It can predict media trends for you. And then also there's a lot of applications for chatbots, especially for customer service applications. Let's talk about websites. So as I mentioned before, most brands have figured out that they need to have a website by now. It does provide a first impression about the brand. It should reflect well on the brand. And one thing to keep in mind is that it needs to have responsive website design and be mobile optimized. So basically, however people look at your content, whether it's on a mobile phone screen or an iPad or a very large computer monitor or whatever, that the design is responsive and will adjust to fit into that space. Google also prioritizes mobile-friendly sites and search results, so that's just another reason why you would want to have your site mobile optimized. Content, it goes without saying that the content should be high quality, engaging, useful to your publics, easy to find, and you might also think about separating your content for different publics. Like maybe you have a tab for investors, employees, job seekers, the media, customer service. Your photos should look authentic, candid, not staged photos or stock photos. And then your website should, of course, have good graphic design and appropriate fonts or typography. One thing that you can do on a website, as well as throughout all of your social media platforms, is storytelling. And as it says here, it's widespread on websites and then across all owned and social media. There are brands that are great storytellers. And when you're a good storyteller, you can really hook a customer in. I pulled a couple, Patagonia and Nike, as being two examples of great storytellers. Your storytelling could be accomplished through photos, videos, or feature stories. Usually they have a human interest, focus, and they briefly mention the product, service, or brand. So it's not just the product front and center. It's more about maybe the people who use the product or the people behind the product. Let's talk about online newsrooms. So a website will often have an online newsroom. And what this is a centralized hub of current news and information about an organization, including breaking news, feature stories, images, videos, product backgrounders, and financial information. It is for anyone. Anyone can access the online newsroom, but it's mostly designed with journalists, bloggers, editors, and producers in mind, who are often actively seeking information about what's going on at a company. You can use news releases for current events. You can use them for frequent news updates during a crisis. So it's all posted there. Should think about updating this site daily. And if you are at a big company, your company does probably have a lot of news going on. So that might be part of your responsibility if you work for a corporation to create and upload content to the online news room. You often have an RSS feed in the newsroom that automates distribution. Don't worry about that too much. You can send alerts to journalists about news releases that you've posted or important announcements that you've posted. I mean, you're posting stuff every day. I probably wouldn't send an email to journalists every day, but you can wait for the most important announcements. You can have media galleries on here with, the video and photo content, for example. You can have background information on here as well. So, in addition to news releases that are like breaking news or just whatever's the latest going on at the company, you might want to think about having the history of the company here. Of course, a searchable database of your past news releases, a fact sheet, profiles of the executives at the company, video clips of the executives, which is particularly helpful if you want them to go on talk shows or be interviewed by the media. They can check out how they do it on tape, on film, in front of the camera, and then product descriptions and specifications. You might also package some content on your online newsroom as a media kit. So maybe you have a newsworthy event that's happening, you have a new product launch, you have something exciting going on at your company, the 100th anniversary celebration. Maybe you package some of that content on there as a media kit. So it's like a one-stop shop for all the content related to the 100th anniversary. And then, of course, you would want to have your PR contact information on there as well, so journalists know who to contact. Let's talk about blogs. They are a regularly updated website or web page, typically run by an individual or a small group and written in an informal or conversational style. I'm sure you're quite aware of what blogs look like, but organizations can use blogs as well for PR and marketing purposes. They help to increase traffic to your website or to your social media profiles because they're usually linked to the blog. They may increase traffic to other brand content that you have out there, and then also help with indexing you on search engines. So if somebody Googles your brand name, your company name, that blog may pop up high on the search engine. Blogs can help to humanize companies, make them feel like they're not this like nameless, faceless thing, but there actually are people at a company. They can provide opportunities for engagement with different publics and then help establish thought leadership. So if you write a blog on a certain topic about, technology or whatever it is, you can establish yourself as a thought leader in that area. You might also, with your company, have employee blogs, and the employees are, in a way, acting as ambassadors for the organization, helping to build trust between the publics and the organization, and can help position the organization as a leader, and also the employees as being cutting edge employees that are very knowledgeable on a topic. You might also have the blog hosted, for the employee blog may be hosted on the organization's site, but employees may host their own blogs and identify themselves as an employee of the company. So it's a good idea to establish blogging guidelines if you're encouraging employees to blog. Even if you're not encouraging them, it's still a good idea to have guidelines for what they can say and they can't say online. Now let's talk about social networks. Now, your book uses this term that we probably don't say so much anymore, social networks, but I think it's to differentiate these platforms where we are doing more networking with people with some of the other ones like YouTube that we'll talk about later that maybe are more considered social media. But before choosing a social networking platform, you should consider the objective that you have for the communications that you're going to put out there, as well as the type of message that you want to send. So common strategies would be to include hashtags with your message, maybe to put a new spin on a meme that's been going around, so you personalize it for your brand, or doing some brand storytelling through video. Let's talk about Facebook first. It is the third most visited website in the world after Google and YouTube. So it is definitely very popular. 1/3 of the audience is between the ages of 25 and 34. So as you can probably guess, it does tend to skew older. You can add a call to action button to your post, which is really nice. Like if you want to make that call to action, say that you want to watch more or shop now or donate now or download something, so people can interact, directly with your posts. More than 50% of all business pages or profiles share video, so it's important to think about Facebook as a video sharing site as well. You can do live streaming video, you can do some AR, VR stuff on Facebook as well. Like a lot of sites, you can do contests, so your book just happens to mention that. And Facebook and Twitter, but you can do some real-time customer service on Facebook, but most people would use Twitter. Let's talk about Instagram and Snapchat. So Instagram is a photo and video sharing tool. It's best for visual-based branding. And Instagram actually has just started as just a place to share photos. And it's really, I think, stayed pretty true to that. And one of the cool things Instagram offered in the beginning were those filters to make your picture look with different tones, different filters. And hashtags are very popular on Instagram. As you know, a lot of people use a lot of hashtags on Instagram. I've heard debates on whether hashtags are effective at with the algorithm or not. So we don't need to get into that here. 70% of users are younger than 34, so you can see what a younger audience Instagram has over Facebook. And as you probably know, Instagram is great for food, fashion, travel, hotels, etc. I pulled one Chipotle Instagram post here, and it's just like a little bit of a creative spin with the the burrito foil balled up like a basketball. Snapchat is a favorite platform among teens and young adults. It was the first platform to have stories, which was copied by Instagram. They talk in your book about how snaps can be micro moments. And I looked up a definition of micro moments, and I found it could be like the I want to know moments, I want to go moments, I want to do moments, and I want to buy moments. So it's just like a little snapshot in time that maybe tries to get you to do something. And then you can have, a lens on Snapchat that can be sponsored. So I pulled this one from Taco Bell, so you can make yourself look like a taco. And so Taco Bell would be sponsoring that kind of lens. Let's talk about Twitter. Twitter is still around as of this recording, but Threads was just released, and there's a lot of talk right now about can Threads replace Twitter. But let's talk about Twitter. On Twitter, the discussions are public and global. You can get brief messages in real time. It's great for current events. So if something's going on, you're watching something on TV, or you're at a game, or you're at a concert, or something's just going down in the city where you live, Twitter is a great place to go to see what is happening. It is a regular source of news for 59% of its users. The largest age group, it's only 30% though, is in the 25 to 34-year-old age range. The PR uses for Twitter can include late breaking news that you just want to push it out there really fast. The nice thing I think about Twitter as opposed to some other platforms is that there's so much sharing going on there. So if people aren't even following you, they still might see your tweet because somebody else shared it. You can use it for addressing rumors or providing updates on developing stories. You can also use it for raising awareness of your organization or the issue that you are supporting, for engaging with publics and getting feedback from them, building brand loyalty through customer service. A lot of people go on Twitter when they've had something happen. I think about it a lot with airline delays or things like that. People go on Twitter and complain, and then announcing PR campaigns or promotions. So if you have something that you're doing, you may announce it on Twitter. Other uses are live streaming during events. Your book mentions this Volvo contest where when people were watching Super Bowl ads and saw another car's ad, not a Volvo ad, but another car, they could use this Volvo contest hashtag to enter the contest to win a Volvo. Listening and contributing to conversations. So PayPal did something with Treat Yourself, and they were it was with Valentine's Day, and they asked people how they treat themselves or something like that. And it's just a great way to engage with consumers, and then also encouraging employees to tweet as well. So they mentioned in your book MLB players would be tweeting, for example. The last social network we are going to discuss here is LinkedIn, and I hope that you all already have a profile on LinkedIn and have a very wide network. It is a great tool for professional networking, job searching, job recruiting, and business leads. It is the top platform for almost every Fortune 500 company to tell their stories, to recruit employees, and to network. The page templates are pretty standard. So when you compare, say, what you can do on LinkedIn with what you can do on your website, you don't, of course, have as much freedom there because you only have like a standard template. But there are some tabs that you can use, like life posts, videos, that you can tell more of the story of your company. There are groups for PR professionals that you can join, and it's a great source for industry news. One thing that we can do with all this conversation that's going on social media is monitor conversations across the platforms. And when you work in public relations, you should be following what people are saying or sharing about your brand on social 24/7. You should participate in conversations that are going. It's always kind of funny when a brand, if they do it right, kind of interjects themselves into a conversation on Twitter, let's say. You can use it to respond to customer service complaints or requests. It is also necessary to monitor for proactive crisis management. So you just want to make sure that nothing has exploded about your brand on social media. You can't address every complaint. So again, back to the airlines, every person that complains about a flight delay, you can't, you don't need to respond to every single person and say, I'm sorry that you're experiencing delays. Please do this or please do that. So you really have to decide when a response is necessary and then what that response is going to be. Some other tips are don't delay in your responses. So if you do see a crisis happening and you know it needs a response, don't wait 3 days to respond. You have to get on it right away. You want to provide an apology or a solution for those consumers. You don't want to delete comments. So if somebody posts, say, on your Facebook page, and they post a terrible comment, it's really bad PR to delete those comments unless they're hate speech or violates your code of conduct. And then it's also good to respond in a neutral voice. There were a few mentions here in your book. The first one is United Airlines. This happened a few years ago when a passenger was dragged off a plane because I guess the flight was overbooked and he was going to be required to give up his seat, and he didn't want to give up his seat. So many videos of this incident were shared, and it's just really bad PR for United. So, they might have been aware of the incident, but if they weren't monitoring social media, they would not have known how much that was discussed, even to the point where people had a hashtag going around, new United Airlines mottos, where they were making fun of United Airlines. The Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad, this is pretty recent, I guess, pre-pandemic at some point. But there was a Black Lives Matter protest going on in the streets, and Kendall Jenner gave a Pepsi to a police officer, and then race relations were fixed in the United States. So there's a lot of backlash for Pepsi with this campaign. And then the final one is Cinnamon Toast Crunch, where somebody thought they found shrimp tails, and this was something that exploded on Twitter. That is the original tweet, and there was a lot of discussion about whether that was just kind of the cinnamon clumped together or whether those were real shrimp tails. Let's talk about the use of video, audio, and images. Many consumers prefer and better understand visual images. Here's a few stats. They are 40 times more likely to share visuals than text, so, typed out text. 4 times as many people would rather watch a video about a product than read the same content. About 65% of people are visual learners, and your brain processes visual data a lot faster than it processes text. Video is also the most engaging type of content and gets prioritized in a lot of social media algorithms. But you must think about the best use of visuals given your audience and your objective. So some of the options that you have would be live online events. So your book breaks these down into webcasts, webinars, live streams, and video conferences. Let me talk about live streams first because that's probably the easiest to understand. That's just like you're at an event, you're live streaming from the event, maybe you're behind the scenes at a fashion show or whatever it is. Webcasts are the content is just like pushed out there in a one-way kind of method where maybe you record how to do something or you tell people how to use your product or something like that. It's just a webcast. Webinar are more interactive. So we might have somebody talking, giving a talk of some sort, but then other people can engage with that speaker. And then video conferences would be kind of like bigger productions where you're actually running a conference through having an online event. We can use brand videos, and as you know, TikTok is a very popular platform for sharing brand videos. This chapter doesn't give TikTok its due, but it's definitely where a lot of PR attention is focused right now. We also have YouTube. It is, as I mentioned before, the second most used website or searched or used website is YouTube. And a lot of people are consuming content there as well. Podcasts, your book mentions a couple of brands that have their own podcasts, including Disney and Ben & Jerry's, and then photo sharing sites and apps. Flickr has been around forever. I'm always surprised that it's still around, but people do use Flickr for sharing photos. I think it's turned more into like a professional photographer sharing site, and then Pinterest as well. We don't want to forget about how important Pinterest is, especially for female audiences who are sharing or posting or pinning recipes, fashion, home designs, beauty, etc. on Pinterest. I meant to mention this campaign that your book talks about with the Olympic swimmer. I believe this is Katie Ledecky, and she had a partnership with Milk, and she made a bunch of creative videos. And if you watch this whole video, you see her swimming across the pool with that glass of milk on her head. So it's just like kind of fun content, and that plays well on TikTok. Let's talk about mobile technologies. A lot of people are using mobile technologies to access the internet or social media platforms. As you can see in this graphic, the world population, I guess it's still under 8 billion people. I thought it was over by now, but maybe this data is a little bit old. The unique mobile phone users is about over 5 billion, so 66.6% of the world's population. Internet users just under 5 billion, and then active social media users about 4.2 billion. So you can see over half of the world's population are using social media sites. And mobile technologies are powerful tools for communicating and engaging with publics. You really need to keep up with new technology as a PR practitioner. You can use it to communicate directly with individuals. Your book talks about using texting to communicate, and you've probably, if you're anything like me, signed up for way too many texting, brands that can text me. And so texting and email are still powerful ways to engage and reach out to consumers. You can increase your engagement using apps. But you need to make sure that they provide real value. Don't just take your website content and put it on an app. And so your book talks about if you're a restaurant, don't just put, here's the menu, here's how to make a reservation. You've got to put more content than that on the app, or you should. A few examples, they talk about Home Depot with a Project Color app. It uses AR, so it's pretty cool. You can hold up your phone or your pad to your room and choose different paint colors, and it will show you what the color looks like in your room. You can use it in travel destinations to provide information to people. The National Park Services uses an app for guided tours, and I actually have it on my phone. You can also use QR codes. I pulled this tweet that went out a couple of years ago in Hawaii, where when we talk about sending people texts and using text to communicate, they sent out an alert that a ballistic missile threat was inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. What actually was a false alarm, but so many people woke up in the morning to that message, which is a little bit scary. So just make sure you've figured out your texting, how to text. It sends a massive text like that. And I wouldn't test it out on something like this. Just say this is a test. Finally, let's talk about integrating online and social media into your campaigns. Digital media is included in almost every PR campaign. Sometimes it's the heart and soul of the campaign. Sometimes it's used to drive attention to the campaign. Well, social media campaigns usually involve 4 components. First, there's a creative idea that presents the cause or the brand in a new light. Secondly, there is a strong visual component to attract attention. Third, influencers or celebrities are enlisted as part of the campaign. And then fourth, efforts are made to encourage the audience to spread the message through sharing the campaign. You want to be strategic about the social media platforms you are going to use in your campaign. So think about your audience, think about what users can do with your content on that platform, think about the features of the platform. So, a TikTok campaign is going to be very different from a Facebook campaign or a Twitter campaign, or what you're doing on TikTok is very different from the other sites. So think about the audience. If I want a 60 plus audience, I'm probably not going to TikTok, I'm probably going to Facebook. You want to coordinate your efforts across media channels. So you probably maybe aren't just using one platform. You're thinking about the one you want to focus on the most, but you probably are integrating others as well. So I'm going to talk about this Pantene campaign that used YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Those are the platforms that they use. They had the strong visual element. As you can see, these football dads over here doing their children's hair, their girls' hair. And they are the influencers. So I'm going back to those 4 points up there. And then they encouraged people to share this campaign with this dad do hashtag. And they used a lot of media relations behind this campaign as well. So the idea here was that if dads are more involved in the lives of their daughters will grow up to be stronger women. And that's what Pantene is all about, building strong women. And so they enlisted some football dads to do their daughter's hair in different styles. So you can see dad do number 1, the twisted pigtails, dad do number 3, ballerina bun. It's pretty cute, heartwarming. And of course you have those great influencers, which is the next point here as well. So you can tap influencers for paid promotion. The final point here is to consider using microsites. So you might not drive people to your website, but instead a microsite that is just for the campaign. And so Cheetos noticed that a lot of people were talking online about different recipes, and they would say you can use Cheetos for this. Sounds terrible, but whatever. So they started this concept or this campaign around the spotted cheetah. They did recipes. They partnered with famous chefs, and they had a pop-up restaurant in New York City called the Spotted Cheetah for 3 days. And so they just created a spotted cheetah microsite just for this campaign. So if people Googled spotted cheetah, they would go to this microsite site, and it would just be about this campaign, not all about Cheetos and whoever owns them. So that concludes our discussion of online and social media.